All right, and we are live, fiends. Welcome to Handle with Scare, presented by the Slash and Cast Podcast Network. Our show discusses horror movies and the phobias they emphasize. We are smack dab in the middle of botanophobia and the fear of plants. And tonight we're visiting one of my favorite 2021 releases that hit Hulu in Gaia, which is pretty sure first time watch for both of you. So really anxious to hear your thoughts. And I figured after we watched The Happening that I was like, okay, we need to find an absolute banger of a movie to wash the bad taste out of my mouth, because The Happening was not a happy revisit on my part. But all in all, there's some very interesting things in Gaia. Some really intriguing, creature effects. Mushrooms come into play. There's a lot of hallucinogens in some parts, but it's a really fun ride, and I hope more people are gonna go check it out, because this was one that kind of flew under the radar this past year. So anytime we could, ease one of these in, I am all for it. But I, of course, am your host, Emily Druck, and with me tonight are my co-hosts, Holly Hooch and John. And guys, how are you two doing
Good.
tonight?
Good.
They're fantastic. And of course, we are slowly winding down the month. Just a heads up, next month we will be doing the Halloween favorites again, much like we did this past year. Still figuring out what movies we'll be doing, but we'll definitely be tackling the new Hellraiser, which is going to be hitting Hulu here in just a couple of weeks. But we're here to talk about killer plants. And, last week we talked on end about how, we watched a movie where people are supposed to be afraid of the wind and plants, and they really just didn't convey that at all. This week, we have some interesting creature effects. We have survivalists, basically, who are completely detached from the rest of the world, who are just living in the woods. Maybe they're mushroom foragers, maybe they're not. You'll find out here in just a bit. But I want to get your first impressions on Gaia, since this was a first-time watch for you guys.
I'll go first. I loved it. I thought it was really smart. I thought it, really kind of scratched that intellectual itch where you want your movie to have a couple of different layers. It beautifully filmed. Jesus Christ, it was just really, really a good looking film. The acting was crazy good. The story I thought was good. There were some on the nose spots, but I didn't mind. I liked it all the way through. Thumbs up.
Yeah, it was good, definitely. The look of the movie, the cinematography was really good, definitely. Right off the bat, it felt like a higher end movie. I'm sure it was a low budget movie, but it felt like a big budget movie.
Maybe all the budget went into the really good camera, because that was great.
Yeah, of course, really early on, too, we get a lot of drone shots. And, of course, my first thought is, if that was me, that would have been, hitting a tree within, 10 seconds.
They kicked it off with that upside-down shot, which I'm still not, over. I'm still liking that. I dig it. but it is oh, yeah, we've seen that before.
Yeah, I got it. It's funny because I feel like the drone shot is becoming sort of the official low-budget film thing to do now.
It's very good looking, though.
But it's extremely well done in this movie, so it's excusable. Because there's a lot of drone shots in low-budget movies where it literally just looks like, oh, we flew the drone, around the house or whatever. But here they actually do cool cinematic things with it. And the cool upside-down shot where you're seeing them in the reflection of the water instead of seeing them, which was really good and kind of psychedelic right off the bat.
Yeah, that's the thing. I've never really done, not really, done a lot of mushrooms or, felt the psychedelic effects of them. So I feel like I might have missed a little bit more of that level of, the drug-induced, insanity part of the movie. But yeah, going back to even starting, just the start, the two actors on the canoe going down the river, they had a really natural way about them. It's just immediately sucked me into the movie. and they just played everybody in the movie just played really well off of each other.
Mm.
There's only like 4 people.
Yeah, definitely.
If you don't count the mushies.
The clickers.
Is that what they were called? The clickers?
No, well, I'm just joking.
No, it's very reminiscent of Last of Us.
I was going to say, bring that up, of course. And we can, bring that up when they appear. I don't want to jump too far ahead.
Yeah.
But I kind of figured you had probably seen that too and made that connection. And I did a quick look up, and there are some articles where other people are like, so this movie's basically a prequel to Last of Us. Sort of the way that the Snowpiercer was secretly in the Willy Wonka universe. This movie is sort of secretly in the Last of Us universe.
Well, yeah, I mean, that could be a prequel if you consider the ending for sure.
Mm.
There you go. So I think this is definitely a good candidate to go, like, not scene by scene, but act by act for sure.
Mm.
But yeah, and of course, like, it is important to note, like, this one, since it did come out in 2021, it's very, it's more of a pandemic set, like, eco horror movie. But, really early on, you see the 2 characters who were, like, going down the river in their canoe. And, like, right out the bat, like, when they're flying their drone, of course, they run into a little bit of trouble because, the signal ends up dropping as they end up basically bumping into one of the woodsmen that live in the general area. And of course, they don't really know that, like, there's other people around, so it really catches them by surprise when, they don't have that signal. But, I laughed so hard at the beginning because, like, initially, like, the guy just looks at the woman, he's like, oh, typical whitey, trying to run off, at the first sign of danger. Like, oh, what's that noise?
Yeah.
We got to go investigate.
Yeah.
I was asking, what location were they supposed to be in? Was it supposed to be South Africa or? Okay.
I think it was, yeah. I had to actually look it up because they didn't say at the beginning. Mm-hmm. They just kind of assume, I guess they maybe assume or they figure that it doesn't necessarily matter to the story. But I was, right away, I was like, wait, I got to look up where this is because the location and the terrain it could be parts of America in this movie, the way the forest looks. But I wasn't sure at first, but South Africa. And
gotcha.
Yeah, they've got their trail cameras out, and we see the...
What were they looking for again?
I think they were basically
mapping,
they were like game warden type.
Okay.
I think it was like maybe a preserve area,
Because they just had like sort of research equipment. They didn't have anything to like defend themselves or anything, other than their knives, which came in so handy.
No, I think they had those game cameras just to catalog like what animals are walking around in the area and
mushies
things like that.
Nice.
But the survivalists were putting mud over the lenses and messing up the cameras.
Ah, is that what it was? Because there's that little scene where he's like, but like the crispness or the color choices in the cinematography were like really nice, like just really vibrant, and it was cool to see. Which of course came in handy once the fungi started moving in. But let's not get ahead of ourselves.
And go ahead.
I was going to say, like, it's not long before Gabby, is wandering off in the forest and, falls into a trap, like people do, happens all the time. You start running and you hit a bear trap.
That one was a rough one, man. Like the stick through her foot.
I was fine with that, but I swear, like, just to nitpick a tiny bit, she had like those full-on boots, and I was like,
you think they would have done
that stick really go through?
Shouldn't it have broken?
But it's fine. But it was, just because of the way that it was like a spring trap that stuck the sharpened stick through her foot. It's like maybe a regular shoe, but that's just nitpicking.
Maybe a flip flop.
Yeah, exactly. Some Crocs or something. But...
Some holy Crocs.
No, but that's fine. Yeah, no, it's a good scene, though. She gets the stick through her foot.
She gets the stick. Right, so then she manages to find a tiny little cabin where she goes to lay down and is trying to message her partner, who at this time is having a worse time, if you can imagine, right?
Mm-hmm.
So he's being attacked by the mushies, or what do you guys call them? The clickers? Clickers, the clicking mushies. And do we see what eventually happens to him? It's just tendrils of like fungi, isn't it?
Yeah, we see like the creeping vines or what roots coming towards him, and
two very different approaches from our monsters. I mean, if they're not beating you to death, they're just very, gently putting their tendrils on you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I wonder. It's like just literally right now. I was like wondering if because like you said, there's two kind of distinct. There's the kind of pollen we see, or really early
Spores.
on, it releases the spores. Out in, and we see it kind of spreading around the forest, and it kind of spreads itself that way. But then we also see what probably my only complaint about the effects is that those creeping root vines look a bit CG, and I don't know if maybe those were added on later because they wanted something more to kind of add a little to it, where it's not just the spores. I don't know, but. Because we kind of see them, creep in on people, and then they kind of come back and they kind of hide. And
so we get our very first, very beautiful scene, which is where I forget her partner's name. Winston? No. Was it a W name?
I can't remember either.
Anyway, well, he's attacked, and then he's just, you find him, and you think he's dead, but he's just basically defeated. He's got that big orange, yellow mushroom growing out of his forehead, and the whole scene is just really good looking, the colors of the forest and everything just looked really good. So, but at this point is when we get introduced, I guess we were introduced earlier to Stefan and his dad. What was his dad's name? Shoot. I don't remember anybody's name.
It's
Baron. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I remember, Baron. So I really liked how you get initially you get a sense they're attacking them, they're the villains of the movie, and then very slowly you come to understand that they're not at all, and then later it just kind of turns on its head altogether.
The fungus creatures, or the fungus?
No, the father or son.
Oh team. Yeah. That you think they're bad at first, and the way they're introduced, they almost look
with the sabotage
creatures.
Exactly.
You just see his one hand. And it's all kind of weird
skinny,
looking.
so you're like, ooh.
Yeah, they're really skinny. But yeah, they almost seem like zombies or some kind of weird thing in the forest. But yeah, then they're actually okay.
Yeah, when you first see them, they're covered in mud, which makes a lot of sense later, just because it's camouflage and it's probably help with some other issues in the forest. But then, of course, later once they get home, they're cleaning themselves up, and then they're cool.
They're all covered with mud. Yeah.
Well, yeah, that's how you heal your wounds.
I have no fucking clue.
Just get a couple of sticks, grab some mud, throw it on, good to go.
Desert. Everything just dries out.
Yeah, they had the special healing properties of the fungus area, like the dirt or the...
Sure, yeah.
Which I'm sure, comes from the same fungus creature.
They do have that great potion they put on her foot that makes it all better. And she's like, what the fuck? Because it's all completely healed over. They're like, that's some fancy medicine. Oh, and they're eating porcini mushrooms. And he's like, these are super expensive in your fancy restaurant. And you're like, my fancy restaurant? So already, we got Baron or the dad sort of expressing some low level of hatred of society.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Which, do we see the tree? The tree that he goes to, don't we see that pretty early on? Is that where the spores come from early on?
Well, the tree, I think, was his wife.
Oh, well, there was that part.
Yeah. And then, he gives her offerings, and she gives him, these mushrooms that'll keep him from growing mushrooms.
But was it the...
Sorry, it's the movie. I'm still thinking about it. I'm still processing the movie.
Yeah, I didn't know if that was... I don't know if I'm jumping ahead too much, but if the wife... Was she the tree, the main kind of god? creature, or was it? Well, I mean, he says that it's.
It's that network of fungi that I was talking about. I can't remember if it was our last recording. I talked about
happening.
that there's the Radio Lab podcast from Tree to Shining Tree, which is when they only recently like discovered this network of fungi that live just below the forest floor. Mm-hmm. So he was referring to that as it being like older than gods, and some really nice lines there as well.
Time.
And then his wife, they reveal much later in the movie, so we'll have to like say that just to be able to jump back. That she had cancer, and both of them, I think they had some sort of a technical field experience, like chemical engineers or something like that.
She was a survivalist with them, right?
Yeah,
but she didn't last very long, basically.
So, she had cancer and she died, and she became part of the forest, I guess. Mm-hmm. And that's what... And
we see, like, where she's kind of...
So is she Gaia? Or is the girl... Or is Gabby Gaia?
Well, I think they were saying it's been around for a lot longer.
The dirt is Gaia. Wait.
But it did seem like maybe the reason why it chose them to be the kind of, like, apostles is... because of her merging with it, maybe?
Maybe? I feel like that's going to be a lot of us. That's how we're going to talk for the rest of the movie. Like, maybe it means this?
When they have that shot where you can see that it's her body, but she's, like, almost transformed into a tree.
Yeah.
Is that the main tree where he goes and gets the mushrooms and everything? It is, right? So she must have kind of merged with it.
Yeah, I think so, too.
Mm-hmm. Which, I think that's got to be then why they were sort of chosen to be the people to...
And things are things are happening. The pacing's really great in this movie where it feels like it's moving forward really quickly. Mm-hmm. But then, now that we're talking through, it's like, well, it only seems like 4 things happen and then that's the movie.
Yeah,
so, I mean, like, she arrives at the cabin, they find her, they heal her, they go on a little walk, and then when they come back, they get attacked by the mushies. They get attacked by the mushies and she's fine, or they're fine, and then later the next day they go for a walk, and that's when they find her partner, and he's covered, and then he has that really cool scene where he kills himself with an arrow, which was very emotional but also very visually cool.
Not in terms of story, not a lot happens, but there's
a lot of subtext.
It's a lot of visual storytelling and cool shots.
So at this point, she decides to stay with them, and like the whole story becomes very like biblical somehow, where he turns into Abraham, and then she's both representing humanity and decadence, and having a weird semi-sexual sort of interaction with the underage, or coming of age son. It was really interesting. It got really like deep, and I'm still trying to figure out what everything's supposed to mean.
Yeah, she's trying to corrupt him by, trying to steal his soul by taking a picture, and she's trying to seduce him. I think she's wearing her, like a little potato sack.
Though, right? And it's really funny because in the movie, like when you first see her, she's a pretty lady, but then by the time we get to this part of the movie where it's just the 3 of them, and she's starting to interact more with the young son, then she becomes like the hottest woman I've ever seen. I'm like, when did this happen? And she hasn't bathed. Like there's that scene where she's just laying naked on that moss covered like tree stump or something over the water, and I was like, wow, that's a very good looking lady. But yeah, I wasn't sure. Like I think it's supposed to maybe represent like she might be the decadence, but more than anything, she's supposed to be humanity, because the dad is trying to keep him away from society, and his lust for her, I'm guessing, is supposed to be representative of the fact that we're just social creatures, and we're just going to want to be with each other, in mass and groups, and there's that's as undeniable as it is that that we're an awful species or something.
I thought it was funny, when she was showing him her Instagram.
Yeah.
And she's like a ranger, like a game warden type of person. But I was thinking when she was like showing him her Instagram, I was like, she's like, here's my Instagram. I have 500,000 followers.
Oh, she did?
No, but I was jokingly thinking that because when she was showing him the picture, they're all these like full on look like pro modeling pictures.
Yeah, they
she
do.
looks like a model. It's just like, oh my god, she would in real life she would have a ton of followers for sure. She's like, I make more money from ad deals with Instagram, but I like being a ranger.
I make my money from Instagram, but I ranger for my soul. Oh, she's a ranger for fun. And the travel.
But yeah, you were saying Abraham. That's what I was trying to remember, because there's the thing in the Bible where God tells
to kill
Abraham
his own son, and then stops him right before he does, which happens as well in the movie. So in the movie, Gabby has convinced Stefan to come back into civilization with her, and he's on his way to do so, but his dad stops him. Although at this point, Dad's already decided he's going to try to kill him. But basically talks him into coming and staying with him, and he does, which I was very surprised Gabby didn't win that fight. And so back at the tree where the mushies, no, not the mushies, where the little mushrooms are being given out, or the communion, I guess. The communion mushrooms, that's when Gabby is able to stop him from killing Stefan.
Yeah.
So, so the Abraham sort of analogy. So he's sort of looking like, clearly he's representing religion, and how it's not that much better than just like his ideas of religion are not that much better than just being in society and eating burgers.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What?
It's important to note too that like the fungi in this movie, multiple times we can see like how rapid growing it actually is. Because like even like during some of like the nightmare sequences with Gabby, we see like that fungi starting to grow and sprout from her body at multiple different patches. Whether it's her arms or her legs. But like it, what I really liked about Baron is just the fact that like he was a plant pathologist, so like it tied in perfectly with like the reason why he was actually there, and he's seeing like all of like these like restorative properties that like the earth actually has, which is also like more of a reason for him to like actually stick around, because he's doing like his science work too on top of basically appeasing, the god that lives underneath the soil here.
And a cool thing that the movie is doing is it's sort of saying that our idea of God and religion comes from this thing, which is, which is sort of the real God of the earth is this actual fungus thing, and that. And that kind of ties in. There are people who believe that human intelligence and consciousness came about because of eating psychedelic mushrooms back in the ancient world, and think that like triggered the change that
kind of put us online. Yeah, that's crazy. What was I going to say? Well, back to that story, the podcast that I was talking about that network. They move protein in. They basically negotiate sugars in exchange for protein from trees, and are able to give trees, their barks basically. Because otherwise, if it was just sugar, it wouldn't just have enough to formulate the thick bark that some of them have. And we're talking like freaking like salmon that were thrown on the forest floor by a passing bear. And where fungus are able to move that into like the soil, and it's I'm interested in that religion. Yeah, send me some pamphlets. I will get the newsletter.
It has good body horror with the fungus growing on your skin and having to pull it off, and it's getting into your system, which is good. It's a fun one.
That was really fun.
Yeah, the whole time, though, when, like, you start to see, like, Winston, like, decaying, and you see more and more fungi growing on his body, my only thought was, it's like, I could probably go to, like, Michael's right now and find, like, this is, like, a decoration. Like, around Halloween,
Definitely. Well, and that's the thing, too, by the way, like, the how fast they grow is they do like fungus does grow really
fungus
fast.
grow really quick.
Those like
overnight,
long mushrooms that they would show, like those white ones, you see those growing out in weird places. But it's definitely what the Happening was trying to sort of do. But it did it better because it had the effect.
It did it better. Wait, The Happening did it better?
No, this movie Gaia did it better.
I was gonna say, geez,
because they had the effect of seeing the spores go out and spread around.
That was very nice.
Yeah, you actually saw the wind,
and so you understood what was happening and why it was happening and everything, and how it worked and all that. They visually, made it clear how the rules and how this thing worked and spread itself and everything. And that was good.
I was thinking, it had the lore. Mm-hmm. It had the lore for John.
Definitely. And the guy who had the scientist who explained things too.
That's always fun.
Silly. You gotta have
mad scientist when you think about it.
Mad scientist too, which is cool. It's kind of a secret mad scientist. They kind of slip it in there without really.
I really like we talked a little bit about the sort of really inappropriate relationship between Gabby and Stefan. And I thought it was like well done, like where I was very uncomfortable. and the maid Stefan, like they really pointed out like his youthfulness, right? There's a moment where he's looking at the camera and it's very close to his face, and you're seeing all of his like teenage acne, and you're seeing like his narrow shoulders and stuff. Well, I mean, not that, only prepubescent boys have, or prepubescent boys have like narrow shoulders, but you know what I mean? Like they're showing like how really young he is. Mm-hmm. And you never really get an understanding of how old Gabby is, but it is very clear that she is a grown woman and he is a young, teenage boy. Yeah. And then like and so that's, and so you understand from his point of view, like why he would behave the way that he does, because, he's a teenage boy. But from the Gabby point of view, like you that's the part that it's not, her behavior wasn't typical of a grown woman. It was typical. I'm not typical, but like I said, it was a metaphor, right? So she was, a stand-in for like I keep saying, like standing for being part of humanity, for not being isolated, for being out in the world that's scary and dirty and gross and sticky, but also that's where all the fun stuff is.
Yeah, and Stefan's really only known the forest because that's the only place he's lived, because he was conceived at the house that they live in. And, his mom had died of, it was bone cancer, and it was like 13 years prior.
Let's say he's 16, 17. So we're talking like he's a little kid,
Yeah, he's definitely under... Yeah, he's definitely under 18, so, that's all he really knows at this point in time. And, obviously, like, his dad's putting him to work, like, he has his, duties around the house, like chopping the wood and everything. But, like, the part that really made me laugh is, like, when he's just, like, awkwardly staring at Gabby as she's sleeping, and then she wakes up, and then he's, like, there to, like,
but he's, like, not awkward at all, or, like, he doesn't feel the awkwardness at all. He's just point blank, staring.
No. Any better.
But and then I was gonna just do one more thing about that. She was gonna say that, and I also appreciated that they, as flirtatious as their friendship was, and never became physical. So it also made you think like, oh, well, then why aren't we taking it there? I mean, for obvious reasons, but higher reasoning, like what is it contributing to the story that their friendship is so hypersexual, but then, whenever they get very close, it's just a hug. And so I don't know, I just keep thinking that was, it was just very, very thought provoking. So.
Yes, Stefan gets a hug and his
dad
fucks
I forgot about
around,
that.
basically.
What's going on with that? Well, that's his mom.
It was an Antichrist
that's
moment.
What I was thinking
I prefer Willem Dafoe for sure.
That seriously, there is like a scene that's exactly like that in that movie. But the relationship, I thought at first it was meant to be like
between Stefan and Gabby.
That she was basically like
seducing,
kidnapped, and then she was trying to figure out how to escape, and she realized that he was attracted to her, so she started trying to work in that angle. That to help her escape.
I kind of thought that too. Like the very first time she smiles at him or something like that, or when they're taking like selfies and stuff.
And she's like, "We gotta go." Like I don't think at first, but then she does change though, where she does start to like him, and
the power dynamic kind of shifts around, right? So it goes from us feeling like she's a captive to then her, actively coming back and becoming. Well, I mean, and that happens to the very end, but it just, the power dynamics change in that, and I feel like that's again like when everything goes biblical. And I'm trying to think back now to when she was ingesting mushrooms, and if that also coincides with the timing, because I mean, like, there's got to be a huge element of just like, the psychedelic.
Yeah, which they do show, like the mushrooms.
There's that ritual she goes through, but that's a little later in the. Well, does she still feel like a captive when she does that? When she goes through that, I think she might have, right?
I mean,
in terms of like what's happening in the story, like
it's hard to say when she kind of changes. What isn't there a point where they say she can leave and she chooses to stay or something?
Yeah, and the dad's already done with her. He's like, okay, you need to go. You've been looking at my son too much. But
well, I think the turning point though was when the creatures eventually break into the house and like the guys like, defend her basically, because that's when like the fungus is like trying to like attack her when she was sleeping, and that whole time, like when you see like the the branches, the only thing I'm thinking of is like, okay, are they gonna Evil Dead this?
Oh
yeah,
with the branches and the lady.
I thought about that too.
Which I guess we can finally talk, about the creatures, which I guess are meant to be people who have been fully taken over by the mushroom or by the fungus and are now like sort of just like drones.
Yeah, but it sort of like happens differently because when her friend gets infected, he chooses to kill himself. So he still had, I guess at that point had
become one.
Yeah, okay, gotcha. But then when she passes, she just is covered like actually it's very beautiful, right? It's very like she's buried in rose or flowers because like they're fungi, but like they're so pretty and diverse that it looks like a garden. It's a fungus garden.
Which kept reminding me also of Annihilation.
Yeah.
The fungus body in that one felt similar to that. But yeah, so I've never played Last of Us, but I do play other games and I follow the video game world, so I know about it, and it's a hugely popular game, and I've seen all kinds of stuff with it. And so when they first started showing the fungus creatures, I was like, okay, this looks exactly like the creatures from Last of Us.
When did that come out?
I checked, and it came out before 2017, I believe.
That's plenty of time for them to know better.
And the thing is not only that, but one of the main fungus creatures in the movie has the exact same head where it's that split where it comes out. There's a Last of Us creature where that has that exact.
I haven't played the game either, but I've seen images of those guys. So yeah.
And what's funny too is the mad scientist in this movie says that the fungus attacks your eyes,
lungs,
lungs first.
All the wet stuff, yeah.
And what's funny is when I wanted to check, when I checked about the comparisons between Last of Us and this, in Last of Us they make clicking noises because the fungus blinds them, so they use like an echolocation, like a bat. And these creatures in this movie click. They don't say they use them as echolocation, but the scientist says that it attacks your eyes. So I was like, okay, is this literally meant to be connected to the movie, like to the game? Is it purely a coincidence?
What's the game about?
The game is about a fungus that basically it's a zombie story with the twist that the zombies are created by this fungus outbreak.
So yeah, it is in the world, I guess.
So there's a couple of articles online that basically say, are like this movie is essentially a preview, like a prequel of The Last of Us, and sort of explains the outbreak of the.
Which, you know, by the
Are
way,
they?
they're doing an
Nice.
HBO
Ooh.
series
And-
of The Last of Us. Yes.
As
There's an
of
FYI.
Gaia or Among Us? Oh, Last of Us. Sorry.
Of Last of Us.
Among Us. Yeah.
That's something
That's a
else.
different game.
No, that's
Yeah.
more bodies.
Well, I
you
was
know.
gonna say, can we go back to the part where Baron's fucking the ground?
Oh my god. Yeah.
What does that mean? I mean, well, it's his wife, but also the goddess. It's Gaia and
It's
his
his
wife,
wife.
so he can't even detach his sexuality from like his I don't know, from his ideology, and but somehow expecting his son. Oh, that's the thing too. It's like sort of completely denying the fact that his son is having like these hormonal changes and needs, while, you know, not disregarding his own. Like, I don't know. Like, I felt like he was portraying religion like he was a representative of religion, and a bad one at that. Like, he was basically like, hey, this is he's got a lot of, he's making a lot of sense in a lot of different ways, but also he can be a little hypocritical. He's willing to kill his son, so he's fanatical. He's just all the bad things about religion as well.
Mm-hmm. But apparently the guy, you know, Gaia did tell him specifically to do it. And then so it seemed also like the Gaia was giving them those specific mushrooms as a way to keep them from transforming. Did you notice that? Or
yeah, but I thought it was also
that idea?
But his wife's in the tree, so is his wife Gaia, and Gaia is his wife, or they become melded?
Oh. And there's that cool scene, by the way, sorry to where when the young son he gets fed the mushrooms that will help him, and then he runs over and kisses her, and puts them in her mouth, and he's like, "Eat those." And
then it helps her with her fungus problem, with her yeast infection,
keep it from spreading,
with her leg yeast infection. That's nice.
Where Gaia is like deliberately using them as in their human form.
Well, maybe
she doesn't
it's
want
like
them to transform.
So you get a sense, and not to spoil the movie, but I will. That it's a growing contagion, right? And it's slowly spreading, and these two people, or this father-son team, are the only ones that are being spared in this sort of microcosm that they kind of have going on. And I'm wondering if the only reason they're being spared is because his mother did meld into the Gaia tree,
right?
And so kind of like sparing them as like the last semblance of like, this is my son and my man, and I'm gonna help him out as much as I can. Oh, that rhymed.
It also makes me wonder if, like, because I was thinking about, like, why now, if the Gaia creature has been alive for tens of thousands of years, you know, why has it just kind of stayed to this one area?
Well, that's when the happening kicks in, where it got mad. It finally got mad.
But now I'm kind of thinking that maybe it was merging with his wife that sort of kicked off, like took it to the next level, where now it's sort of conscious and intelligent in a way, where once it absorbed her.
Well, I feel like it would have had a lot of opportunities to absorb people, though.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it clearly absorbed those other people who were the creatures. Mm-hmm. We don't know who they are, where they came from, but they must have started out as humans. They're probably not funguses that like shaped themselves into human shape and then started running around.
I really love that scene where Gabby's trying to convince him to leave with her, and she was like, "You can do whatever you want. You could learn to read and write, and you can work with me." And I'm like, you need a lot more than reading and writing skills to make it in life. Like, you can't do anything.
Yeah, it gave me flashbacks of the people under the stairs, where it's like this guy's got a long road to go. If he's gonna live in the regular world, he's not gonna just move there and be like, okay, cool, like I have a job now and I'm
He's gonna live under a bridge in a salt lemon.
Yes, totally. He has no idea how to live in the regular world.
I know.
And she's like, no, it's cool. You can just get a job and you'll be fine.
You'll work with me.
Yeah, it's like the extent is basically being like a door greeter or like someone flipping signs.
But then that's
that's
a creepy level of like, we'll tell people you're 18 and you're my nephew.
Yeah. So we'll pretend we're family, but we'll be secretly in a relationship.
So gross.
But But I wonder, I guess you could sort of say that her attitude of like wanting to stay changed because she was starting to become infected by the fungus and was, wanting to stay because she was kind of being transformed.
Yeah, that's the other thing too that we haven't talked about, like the transformative or the psychological effects that we can attribute to the character's actions from being exposed and having and then eating the mushrooms, because there's so many scenes of like, oh no, I was just dreaming, oh no, that was just a dream, which can be a little annoying.
But the thing is, and this is like goes with the body horror and is a cool thing about this movie that I like, is that when they show the spores floating around in real life, you can inhale certain kinds of fungus spores and they will start growing mushrooms and funguses in your lungs. So, I mean, in real life, like this, what happens in this movie can basically happen to you. Mm-hmm. And so I think she inhaled, basically everybody in that area of the forest has inhaled those spores and is infected. And so her infection is spreading and it's affecting her dreams because it's in her head. It's affecting her mind, I think.
This dovetails in so nicely with what you were saying, that some people believe that eating mushrooms was what gave humans consciousness. Because, I mean, like, I'm no scientist, but I can buy into that easy. Mm-hmm. I can, okay?
But, yeah, I think the dreams... Yeah, I kind of didn't... I wasn't a huge fan of the dream fake outs.
Nobody is. Why do they keep doing that shit?
I know. I know exactly. I didn't mind it at first, but they do it a lot, and it was like, okay, come on. Like,
one little thing I did like about it was that it kind of, again, the whole like the switch we were talking about earlier, right? That they flip. So when they do a couple of the fake outs of the dreams, she'll dream she has mushrooms on her skin, and then when she wakes up, and she takes them off, right? Which is a really good scene of her tearing them off, and they're holding onto her skin. And then she wakes up, and her skin is fine. And so they do that a couple of times or twice, and that's the definition of a couple. But then by the third time, like she stays in that dream state, and she has fungi on her skin, and she is fucked. Mm-hmm. So I thought that part was kind of cool, where it's like, dream world, real world, and all of a sudden, like, there is no more reality, just dream.
Well, and it's a cool idea, the idea of Gaia, which is that the Earth has a consciousness and that it's a god. So that if you sort of have this fungus that's so gigantic and it's one giant life form, like you could sort of say like this is, and a god, and so it spreads itself throughout everybody and infects everyone.
Can fungi survive in the water? Is there a water fungi?
Probably. I don't know, but probably.
I have no idea, but like during the dream sequences, when you do start to see like the fungus really spreading all over her body, it kind of reminded me of like inducing like sleep paralysis, because like even when Winston is infected and he's like propped up against a tree, like he doesn't move. He's there the rest of the movie basically until he's fully infected
and sending weird messages over the walkie-talkie, where he's just sort of saying weird, random stuff.
So then we can say, because there's a lot of when it's not the mushies walking around, there's a lot of like whispers in the forest, which we can just assume they're in the whoever's hearing them's brain, because the mushrooms are controlling them, or because the spores are controlling them. Mm-hmm. I mean, and we already talked to in other episodes about like there's horrible fungal infections that affect different species of everybody, but the one that I remember the most is those ants that like they just they turn into zombies and
they grow.
It's insane.
Yeah.
So actually, this is real, just not on a human level.
I mean, this is in a sense the same story as The Happening, but just better.
Let it go, John.
Better told. But it
better
really is. They even wait. the plant even waits until a certain point to do its attack,
It's true.
to spread itself.
Maybe the whole point of keeping those two alive was to create the right situation to send somebody forward.
Yeah.
Maybe it was the sun, waiting for the sun to grow up and be old enough to go forward into society to infect the rest of the world.
Which is, exactly what he does.
Maybe Gabby's all into it, but then maybe Baron isn't, because that's still a son, so he doesn't want to sacrifice his son. Because
I guess you could almost also say, because he's sort of meant to be sort of like the Jesus of this religion, and so not only do you have like the Abraham has to kill his kid, but you also have the where Jesus is gonna be killed, is sort of betrayed and gonna be killed, and then rises again and goes and spreads his message. And so there's a little bit of that too, where
it's very nice. It's fun.
He's the new kind of messiah for Gaia.
I like the ending. And so in the end, when there's a big confrontation where Gabby comes back, stops Baron from killing Stefan. There's a scuffle, and then the mushies arrive and they leave Dad to die at the hands of the mushies. And then back at the cabin, Gabby's being overtaken by the fungi and tells them to just leave her and to go out into the world, right? Which seems like a very selfless thing, or maybe the Spore saying, you gotta go spread this around. Yeah. And then like the ending, it was kind of sad until I think about him spreading the spores. Then I feel a little better about it. So the reason I thought the ending was sad was because he's walking out into society, but it's like a really gray, ugly looking city, and he's wearing like a dirty hoodie, and he's eating McDonald's, and you're like, oh man.
But that's, I think, the idea is like he's gonna basically return the world back to nature
without knowing it potentially. Like, is he just going? He knows. He knows. You think?
Yeah, because the dad and him are fully infected, quote unquote, by the creature. They just take those mushrooms that keep it from fully taking them over. And so, and the Gaia creature tells the father, like, it communicates really deliberately with them. It just does it through, plant chemicals or whatever. And so I think it definitely is, it has decided that it's going to spread itself to the rest of the world and use the sun as the
catalyst or whatever.
The conveyor.
And then, like, the very last scene, his food's all molded over. Or not. Yeah, I thought that was neat.
Yeah, like everything he touches sort of starts to grow fungus, and of course, since it's the same fungus, it's all the one creature spreading itself around.
It's pretty great. I mean, kind of goes back to the beach house a little bit.
Yeah, that was popping into my head during this too, where it's kind of the same story as the beach house. Yeah. Where and it's even kind of similar where in the beach house there's that cool psychedelic scene where all the sort of
the light, like the
stuff is floating,
the bioluminescence somehow, like on the trees,
where it kind of releases as spores and gas like into the air in the same kind of way.
There's something so satisfying about having monsters have spores and how that they spread shit, and you're like, yeah, you're fucked.
Well, it plays in. I don't know if they talk about it in this movie. I think they talked about it in The Happening, where in real life, we're having those things where, like in the Arctic, the glaciers are melting, and then all of a sudden it revealed that crazy blood river thing.
I'm sorry, what?
It was like
I didn't hear this one.
Like, so I think it's in the Arctic or the Antarctic. It was melting and melting and melting, and then they found this crazy like river of red that was just like in the ice that was running, and it was basically this like it was like I don't know if it was a fungus or a virus or a bacteria. I think it was a bacteria or something like that. But it was this ancient bacteria that had been frozen in the ice, and then as it melted, it was like released out. And so in real life, we do kind of have these situations like this.
That's why I don't have any babies, man. That's just too scary.
I mean, I would be, if we're going to have a sort of apocalyptic event, I think this one might be a pretty good one.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Because think about it though, because you inhale the spores, so you're sort of psychoactively you're getting the psychedelics.
You've already bought in. Let's put it that way too. Like you're convinced right away.
Yeah, you're converted before your mind is probably converted before you even start changing that much, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a kind of a smooth transition, and it's probably not that painful. Like the guy, the friend, you know, he didn't seem like he was really in pain. He just didn't want to become like a weird, fungus creature. Yeah. He wanted to kill himself, but it didn't seem like he was in pain, basically.
Well, he kept saying, kill me. I feel like if you come across somebody speaking that way, they're probably in some amount of pain. Oh, but it might just affect people differently. Or maybe it's a different kind of fungus that Pete was particularly, affected by.
We can't also leave out, he was also, that character was definitely reminding me of Jody Verrill from Creepshow, Stephen King.
Yeah! That's great.
Growing over and becoming complete plant, and then using the shotgun at the end. But, it's the same, I guess it's a meteor from outer space with Creepshow, but I guess we don't know the origin of... Well, Gaia would be natural. It wouldn't be an alien creature.
Well, there's nothing saying it wouldn't be. It's just fucking old.
Yeah, true. It's ancient. And,
we can't forget the fact that we have, like, this whole, like, monologue or rant from Barrand, which essentially ends in him saying that, the world is doomed because of man.
Turns out it's man!
The real monster is man. That is, of course, the message of this movie.
Yeah.
Ultimately.
The real monster was man.
That's it's a whole genre for sure. that theme. Mm-hmm. But Barrand is good. It also is a little bit of the Mosquito Coast. If you've ever seen that old school Harrison Ford movie, Harrison Ford and River Phoenix, where they go live out in the jungle. They're like, he's a scientist and he has his kid and he takes them out into the jungle and they live out there to be kind of survivalists and get away from society.
How does that
Came
go?
out in the 80s or 90s. I don't remember. I saw it on TV a long time
Does
ago.
Puberty play a big role in what happens at the end?
Mm-hmm.
Always.
It's an early River Phoenix movie too, when he was a kid. Before Indiana Jones with Harrison Ford and River Phoenix. Again.
When I think about running away from society, I don't think about going into the woods. I think I'm always thinking about Murder, She Wrote and just living in Mendocino and riding a bike everywhere and
just a small town.
Just small town and writing letters to people I've got letters to write today.
On a mechanical type.
Yeah, exactly. And it's mostly complaints about, my Nabisco trees or something.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. Writing angry letters to the local newspaper.
That's all I want to do with my life.
To the editor. Yeah.
With my cats.
But yeah, this is definitely a movie where story-wise, it's not a lot happens. Yeah, it's
Yeah, we sat here, we're talking about it, 4 things happen.
Mm-hmm. So they go into the forest, she gets kidnapped by them, then we discover the thing, and then they go out.
Yeah, that's sort of, the trippy dynamic change that happens. That that's the big story. That's the big reveal in the movie.
I like the concept, too, that you could have... Because it was also the thing with the lawns, which on the surface, when you talk about lawns, it sounds kind of silly and kind of mundane, but how the idea that, every lawn in an area is a single organism. And that even, if you have, your lawns in front of your house and the neighbor's houses and across, it's all one plant, basically.
That's neat.
But I like that idea of that if you were going to have that sort of like massive sort of like a creature like the Thing or something, where it's like a collective consciousness type of creature, that we kind of do have that in real life. It's kind of cool, you know, with
it's only a matter
plants
of
and
time for
funguses.
sure until we're all, you know, just in
Mhm.
agreement about everything, and we can all just watch the same show.
Well, and this movie also does the thing that we were wishing The Happening did, where it's like you were saying, it's like the ants that get infected, or like the things that sort of like manipulate, where like one creature is able to sort of evolve to manipulate another creature kind of thing and use it to its own end kind of thing, where the ants become zombified and then do what the
Mind control.
what the Thing wants it to do, and that a plant or a fungus could evolve to do that to us.
Well, I mean, they already do. I mean, well, some of them, like, so for example, well, it's not a fungus, but rabies, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
Right, yeah.
That's insane how there comes a point where you become hydrophobic and it won't let you have the terrible thirst, but it won't let you drink. That's nuts. So there is, it's not out of the realm of possibility for sure.
Mm-hmm. And they have that thing too where cats like carry it's a virus or something.
They have a septic bite or something.
Where it makes but it's something that spreads out and it makes mice want to give themselves up to the cat basically and make themselves.
I did not know about that. Give themselves up.
They
Wow.
like sacrifice themselves to the cat.
That
basically.
is some cool shit.
And scientists are like, there isn't seen to be any connection with humans.
I doubt it.
But they are kind of looking and wondering if, like, there's any
That's why we pick up
possibility
their
that
shit.
it could, like, affect us. Yeah, because it's like maybe there's like a weird, like, two-way thing where we're somehow affected in a way that.
Well, I don't think it's a coincidence that they have faces the size of babies.
So is that why like people are just like constantly trying to climb into the
Exactly.
Give
lines
ourselves up
then?
to the cats.
To have their arms.
I did not know about that. That's crazy.
But yeah, where different kind of bacteria and viruses will make make a creature do something against its better interest. It's creepy. See, that's the way to do plants as scary.
They take over your mind.
Just the idea. I think I brought this up in one of the previous episodes too, but there's a really cool scene in the sequel to Prometheus where they land on an alien planet and the guy is walking around and he takes his helmet off because there's oxygen. And then there's this plant nearby, and just like this movie,
Spores.
you see the spores come out and it gets into him. But it's like, it really drives home the idea that it's like a plant could be super dangerous and in a way that you would never know. You don't have to touch it or be near it even necessarily for it to harm you. If it can put out this spore or a pollen or whatever that can hurt you. You know, if you're super allergic and you inhale pollen, your throat starts closing up kind of thing.
That's true.
You know? That's the way to do like a scary plant, because the idea of scary plants on the surface is kind of silly.
It's either this and that's like a brainiac approach to it, or just straight up have it punch you to fucking death, like in Little Shop.
Like Little Shop, yeah.
Yeah.
Where it can literally eat you like a monster.
Tear you apart like a monster. I mean, that's why I was hoping that The Happening would do a little bit.
Well, and that's the cool thing about Invasion of the Body Snatchers, which is basically a plant movie too, right? But it's insidiously can get into you and convert you and change you. Or I guess it creates a copy of you basically in that movie. Pod people.
Yeah, but yeah, Gaia. Pretty fucking good.
It's a good one, definitely. It's like an 8, 9 out of 10 kind of
I liked it.
thing.
I liked it a lot.
And the pacing is really good for sure. It's interesting because not a lot happens story wise, as we said, but it's paced well. You never really get bored. I didn't.
Yeah, me either. That's good.
And
I get bored easy.
And it's a lot of just them in that, in the cabin.
Yeah.
A lot of the movie.
The cabin that's one room. Again, like that just goes to show the quality of movie this is, right? So not a lot of things happen. Not a lot of scenery change. One cabin room. We never even saw where like Gabby and Winston were staying, right? I don't think we ever saw them.
No.
Maybe there was a campsite? No. Yes. And so
we just saw where they landed there,
right
on the shore.
So it's like, wow, like it was. Now that I think about it, it's really inventive, and of course the mushroom tree that has sex with Aaron. But I'm just saying, it's impressive how well the movie is.
And it did have that. It also made me think a little bit of the Upside Down in.
Oh sure, whenever like
the
red glowy tree. And,
oh yeah, that was great. By the way, that transition where it was in daytime and the spores are getting into all of them, and there's that cool shot where she looks at the jungle or the forest actually, and the light darkens down. It becomes nighttime like in a few seconds, and that red glow comes up in the thing. It was really cool. But that's like where she was, I think, being affected too. It was sort of warping time.
And I hadn't really heard about this movie, and if you hadn't suggested it to you, like I wouldn't have watched it. In fact, I don't know what it was about the cover art, which is Gabby being overtaken by the forest, right? Sort of, I mean, like, or being like not overtaken, but like sort of melding with the forest, because it wasn't even a fungus; it was a forest in the cover art. And I was like, I don't know, there was something about it that I was like, I don't know. I felt like it was gonna make me work for it. The cover art. Yeah, it just made me feel like I wasn't going to just really enjoy the movie. Like it was gonna make me work for it. And so, like sometimes I look at movies and I get a little lazy. But and what was up with the language change back and forth? Is that how they speak in South Africa? Yeah,
I think it's called Afrikaans or something like that. But that's their.
I learned something new today.
Which I think is, it was a South African movie, and so I think that's what they're speaking, which is sort of like Dutch and something else mixed or something like that. It's the language they speak, like in District 9 is also a South African movie, but they speak it in that movie too, yeah. But yeah, they switched a lot. I didn't have the subtitles on at first, and I was like, "Oh shit!"
Me too. I was like, I gotta. Also, like Baron was, initially when he first starts talking to her, he's such a low talker that I couldn't tell what he was saying, so I had to put the subtitles on.
I had that. Whenever that happens in a movie, it's funny because you know how sometimes in a movie they'll speak in a foreign language, but there aren't supposed to be subtitles. Somebody will either translate them or they'll say something where you understood what they said. And so for a while, I didn't realize that it was supposed to have subtitles. I thought they were just doing that. Then I was like, oh shit, okay, now I gotta turn it back on because I don't know what they're talking about. But yeah, I know. What was I going to say? Oh, the art. So I have to say, too, that I predicted in the last episode, the cover art made me feel like this was going to be similar to The Ritual.
Oh, okay.
Which it kind of was, I think, in a way, because it has the pagan god that lives in the forest.
That's true.
And is being worshipped by a sort of secret cult.
It has a random cabin that sort of saves the day.
Mm-hmm. It's actually kind of a similar movie. I mean, I like this story. I'm a fan of the concept of... The first story I read like this was a Clive Barker story called Rodhead Rex, which is a story of a pagan god that lives in the forest and then comes out and wreaks havoc. But I really like that concept that there are pagan gods that nobody worships anymore, but they actually exist and they're just out there. And they're like, man, I'm just hanging out here. Nobody's worshiping me. I'm
eating bears.
Yeah, like I need to get out there and make myself known again.
I need to rebrand myself.
Totally. I like that idea of that.
And I like I'm really a big fan of sort of the creepy pagan spiritual force that's going to gobble you up, and you need to fear for not just your life but your soul.
Yeah, I don't know, T, if you've ever done a lot of camping or what kind of camping you've done, but not a lot. I've done
Not a lot.
I've done camping where you go out into the literal, you hike a couple of miles out.
So there's
and
no
stay in the
picnic
middle of
table
nowhere.
and there's no fire pit?
Yeah. And it's real. Like, I can say the feeling is real where when you've been in the middle of nowhere in a forest or in the wilderness for several days, you really do start to understand how people
develop religion.
Yeah, and how in the old world and in the ancient world you were afraid of the forest and the wilderness is a dangerous place.
Yeah.
And it's creepy at night and like what's out there, maybe there's like supernatural creatures.
So you got to create a story to soothe yourself.
Yeah, like you really feel it cuz you're not in your house with the heater and TV. You're out you're out there with nature.
I don't really feel like the top of the food chain too much, to tell the truth, even in my apartment. But it's particularly when you go out to the forest and you realize how unaccustomed we are to living outdoors. And I get upset if my white socks get dirty.
Yeah, I mean that's definitely this movie is about that, like this how we've separated from nature.
Not Gabby though; she took to it hard. I mean, she was looking great. I mean, aside from a little bit of fungi growing on her legs.
But yeah, it was a great movie. Yeah, the art was. I liked the art. It kind of looks also like a heavy metal album cover a bit. So
yeah. Yeah, I'm still thinking about I swear at some point they made Gabby look younger even. I was like, man, she's looking great. Okay, I'm getting a little creepy. Yeah.
It's all the restorative properties from the mushrooms.
Skin,
I think they did do that intentionally, where she looked more like a regular person in the beginning of the movie, and then she started to kind of look more glamorous.
Yeah, she did
as it went on.
With her potato sack sweater and and her
So yeah, I mean, is this okay? We have one more plant movie, but
do we? I thought we were out of plant movies. No, we have one more. You're right.
But I was going to say this is probably
we got one more.
Little Shop of Horrors is awesome. I guess those were the two best. We've done the three, and then
The Happening was a lot of fun to talk about. I mean,
it's a good bad movie.
Even with this movie, like we're nice and warmed up now, but at the beginning we were like, Gaia is good. And so, but I mean, like The Happening was just really easy to make fun of or to laugh with.
Yeah, I mean, that's the That's
with whichever.
Every part of The Happening is bad in a really good way, in a crazy, like, amazing way, and so there was a lot to talk about with that movie because almost
and a lot of different things happen. And the hot dog man.
Seriously, it's funny how with some really good movies, like I mean, we've actually gone more than an hour now, but at the beginning of this episode, it was kind of just like, Gaia's good. It's really good.
Yeah,
it's good. It's got.
So it's good.
No, but it just shows how with extremely visual movies, it's sort of hard to
convey,
talk about them a little bit. I did kind of miss. Because they do those cool shots in the beginning and the upside down shots, and I kind of hoped and thought that would be something that would kind of run through the movie, but we didn't really get any more of those, and I was a little bit like, I kind of wish there was a little bit more of that kind of photography happening. But I mean, it's not a big deal.
I'm not tired of drone shots, and I'm not tired of upside down shots. I like them both still. I'm sure at some point I will become tired of them, but man, I mean, drone shots are just they became super popular 5 years ago?
Yeah, probably.
Maybe a little more, maybe a little less. but they're kind of amazing.
I think it's as long as you're using it creatively, for sure. Because it's just like, I swear to God, like, so the start of so many current low budget horror movies is the drone shot of flying like to the house or around the house. Or,
well,
you know.
I mean, I was watching The Shining the other day, and how
they're the originator.
Exactly.
Totally.
So it's like,
and they had a helicopter,
exactly.
not a drone.
I like how offended you were that I compared it to a drone shot.
That was a helicopter.
It's just a
Well, I'm just saying, like, it's just that intro of just like kind of descending onto the space from very high above, and yes, you know, like it depends how artistically you do it, but you know,
right, because in the Shining and this movie use it well in the same way, where it gives you that
massive scope of
like how they're in the middle of nowhere and it's this giant forest, or in the Shining.
So relaxed about it. I don't think I'd do well in the nature. I really should work on that. You never know. You know, I should be. I don't want to be a prepper. I want to be like I want to be a survivalist. It's not the same, right? A prepper stays in a bunker. A survivalist learns how to live outside.
Yeah. The preppers are the ones who have like cans of beans in their basement because they're gonna live in their basement during the nuclear apocalypse.
Oh my God! Just kill me now.
That's the prepper. Seriously, side note. Like preppers and that whole thing.
Do you prep a little?
No. I'm firmly in the camp that you don't want to survive the nuclear apocalypse. Trust me, it's not going to be Mad Max. It's not going to be you and the War Boys driving muscle cars around the desert.
Charlize Theron is not giving you a ride across town to get a fucking Twinkie and some gas.
Totally. The real nuclear apocalypse is going to be horrible. You should, if the bombs are dropping, you should run outside and open your arms.
We're talking cannibalism, people.
Seriously.
It's going to be bad.
Yeah, you might get turned into a mutant creature by the radiation, which would be cool.
It never goes the way you want it to. It's never Spider-Man.
Yeah, totally. Yeah,
it's always cancer.
You don't get You don't get a third arm. You just get tumors.
Third arm would be awful too, though. If I can figure out how to fly, that'd be great.
Yeah, some wings, definitely.
No, I don't want the wings. I just want the ability to fly.
But I think this is an okay apocalypse, as apocalypses go.
Are you talking about the pandemic or Gaia? Okay.
And this is a pandemic. I mean, this movie is 2021.
I heard somewhere that, because I was, looking at some of the reviews, that I can't remember the name of the reviewer, but one of them mentioned how production started in 2019 and had to stop due to the pandemic. So the story itself was completed before the pandemic, but I'm willing to bet that it was influenced and informed by it as it resumed production.
Yeah. I mean, he's definitely going to.
I mean, why would you not, right? Especially with the masks.
Definitely.
Neat stuff, neat things.
Exactly. So we're going from mushrooms and psychedelic to feeding babies to an evil tree.
This is a wild card.
Oh, wait, is it a wild? I haven't seen it. Nobody's seen it, right?
I don't think any of us have seen it, right?
I haven't seen it.
Have you seen it?
The only thing I know about this movie is
I watched the preview. I'm 99% sure I've never seen the movie, but the preview seemed weirdly familiar. Like maybe I saw TV commercials back when it came out. But it's a wild card. Like, we'll save it for when we talk about it, but this movie has a crazy backstory and history even before the cameras started rolling. Ooh. So we'll save it to talk about then. But
I'm excited. I'm super. The Guardian, right?
The Guardian.
Yep. So next week we got The Guardian, release in 1990, directed by William Friedkin.
Yeah,
so
Bug.
Haven't done a Friedkin movie since
most
Bug.
famous for The Exorcist, of course. And also, I like this as a pick. It is a plant movie technically because it's I think a wood nymph or a dryad, something like that is the creature. But oh boy, I just lost my old person moment. I lost my train of thought. But but this is also kind of falls into the category of I didn't really of what seems like a relatively big movie or was intended to be a big movie with a big director and everything, but is sort of a lost movie. No, who I'm sure there's some reviews out there of it, but I mean, this is not a movie that people talk about or that you've probably heard about.
What's the rating on Rotten Tomatoes, if you remember?
Oh, I don't remember. I didn't look, but it's low. I think this is one of those. I think this is going to be. I have a feeling this is going to be on par with Clowns at Midnight level of movie.
I enjoyed Clowns at Midnight. Thank you very much. Yeah.
There's a cleaning montage.
Yeah, I just hope there's a cleaning montage.
Oh yeah, no,
because it's a 90. Well, I'm just saying it's a 90s movie, so I mean, there would have to be.
And I noticed that the main actress is the woman from Law and Order.
Mariska Hargitay?
Not Mariska. It's the woman from the original Law and Order. She, I can't remember her name, but she has short brown hair. At first, I thought she was from Star Trek: Next Generation, but then I realized it was L.A. or Law and Order. I mean.
Oh, I know. Like she's got the super pretty face.
Yeah, she played a lawyer.
She played a lawyer. She's like the jaw, short brown hair, super pretty face, and pretty everything. But
and she was a Bond girl in one of the 80s James. I think one of the off-brand James Bond movies where it was like
one of the Timothy Dalton.
Yeah, Timothy Dalton or someone like that. Yeah. But
so handsome.
Very 90s movie, extremely 90s looking, early 90s.
Nice. All right, so The Guardian. I can't wait. It'll be so much fun.
And also, we were talking a little bit too. Just got to throw in at the end of the episode the new Hellraiser.
Also, I wanted to throw in at the end of the episode that I watched X and Pearl, but I watched Pearl before I watched X.
I haven't seen Pearl yet.
It's it's a good movie, but I saw it at the movie theaters, and if I'm paying money to go to a movie theater, I kind of want a lot more pizzazz in my horror movies, you know? Like, I want there to be, like, guts flying across the screen, maybe a little 3D action. I don't know. And Pearl just is kind of, it's, what do you call it? Like a character... character study. There.
It's more of a character study, for sure. But yeah, we'll talk more about it.
But then I watched X. Have you seen X?
Yes.
You and I are kind of on opposite sides of...
Aren't they making a sequel, I thought? Didn't they announce that they were going to make another X movie, I thought?
Yeah. And Mia Goth.
Yeah.
Wait,
Pearl is the prequel, and then there's Maxine, which is the sequel.
Is Pearl... So wait, because I was looking at Pearl... Because I was looking up Pearl's and the old lady in it. I got sidetracked because I think there's a Japanese horror movie called Pearl, and I was like, "Oh, is this the movie you guys are talking about?" But I guess that's not it. But apparently, there's another movie called Pearl, which is a Japanese horror movie.
No.
But yeah, X is good.
Yeah, X is really good.
Unfortunately named though, not because of the rated X part, but because how do you search? Online for a movie
X
called
the movie.
X. You have to, I guess
Mia Goth X the movie. Yeah. She's great.
Yeah, Mia Goth.
So Pearl must be the movie that I heard about where this is the new movie of X, right? Did this Pearl just come out?
Yeah, it just came out.
Okay.
But yeah.
Oh, and I saw I can't recommend, and I wanted to like it. And I don't know if people like it, then I support it because I wanted to like this movie, and it's a movie I should like.
What is it?
But Necrotronic.
Have
you seen this?
Is that on it's on Shudder?
Okay. I've not.
Is that the one with
it's been on my watch list for a long time, ever since it hit Shudder.
No, this is.
Thank you.
Nice. This is an Australian movie about a phone app game that where you catch ghosts, and then it
Like
turns
Pokemon?
out, yeah, like the Pokemon game, but then it turns out that you're actually catching real ghosts and sending them to hell to fuel like hell.
And it's bad.
And Monica Bellucci is in it, and she plays a demon, like the main demon villain.
With
and
cleavage?
It's very like, yeah, of course, and it's very like Evil Dead, over the top.
And it wasn't good.
It's not good. I wanted to like it, and I wanted to like it throughout
Monica
the whole thing,
Bellucci.
but it's just not. It's not so great. But it was trying, and it was.
This is a man who liked The Happening. I mean, that's yeah.
Well, this is a movie it's not so bad. It's good. It's more that it's like it almost is good. It's almost that kind of cult good movie, but it just kind of falls short. It doesn't quite make it.
Has a lot of good elements, but somebody switched out the sugar for salt.
Yeah, and yeah, I won't. People should watch it and check it out anyways. But it's
Monica Bellucci.
Yeah, it should have been good, but unfortunately, and it does the thing I hate now too, where everybody keeps stealing the character. You know, in American Werewolf in London, his best friend gets murdered, and then he becomes like the zombie friend who's like the comedy relief. Yeah. They straight up stole that. The Tom Cruise Mummy movie straight up stole that. It's like, stop stealing that. The friendly zombie sidekick. It's not. Nobody can top American Werewolf in London.
Yeah, it got old. I mean, I remember seeing it in Idle Hands, right?
Mm-hmm. They kind of do that too, yeah.
With Seth Green. Mm-hmm. Or they're just, the sidekicks, but yeah, it's just.
The undead
It got worn out quick.
Mm-hmm. But I did like that new Hellraiser. It does look legitimately good.
Exciting.
For sure.
Yep.
Yeah,
and, the Night House was definitely my favorite release of that year. So I got high expectations.
Good horror movie too, I think.
It's trippy. All right. Well, shall we call it a night?
Absolutely. Let's wrap it up. So again, next week we have The Guardian to close out Botanophobia before we do some Halloween selections throughout all of October. So if you guys are looking to keep in contact with our podcast, you can find our video content on YouTube at Handle with Scare Pod. You can also find us on Twitter at Handle with Scare. And, outside of that, if you want to contact us, you can do so via email at handlewithscarepod@gmail.com. But for now, guys, that will do it for us here tonight on Handle with Scare. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you guys back next week. Take care. All right.